I heard the best argument for electoralism that I have ever heard. So
Amazing.
there is the one argument that no one ever makes, but that is excellent. That is, well, don't vote for the national elections, but vote for your local elections, because that's where your vote actually counts. Nobody ever makes this argument, but it's right. And if you were to make that argument, then you would have my ass immediately.
I was going to make this argument, believe it or not, because this is one of the things I think when you get into particularly anarchism, right, in an anarchistic approach, if you have a sort of pacifist or gradualist approach to anarchism, like it becomes very clear that America is, you can deconstruct America and turn it into counties instead of states. And that there's a lot of shit that can't be implemented to hurt your neighbors or do bad things or any of this kind of stuff if you control county. And then there's also quite a lot of good you can do very quickly with very few people showing up if you control the county. So this is that's a branch that has interested me as for political theory for quite a while. But let's hear the other one. I want to hear we can circle back to that one. But let's
Yeah. We definitely should circle back to that one, because that's the clear winner, obviously.
Right.
But I was so I don't much consider myself a leftist these days, but I still listen to leftist thinkers a fair bit, and just to like get a lay of the land and see what was going on. And there's this dude named Diallo. I don't know Diallo's last name, but I think he runs a YouTube channel called Black Power Media. And he was doing an interview with FD Signifier. And so these are two black leftists who are sort of working it out. You know what I mean? Like trying to figure out what's really real. And they are in the pro-Kamala camp, not because they believe in Kamala Harris necessarily, but because they think that it is your duty as a resistor to vote in the candidate that you think is most susceptible to your resistance.
Dude, you are quoting a fight I had about 4 months ago that I ended up in this camp. I ended up in this position because of picking my battles, picking who I want to fight.
I heard that argument. I had never heard that before, and I never really thought of it in those terms. And suddenly I was like, maybe it would matter to try to vote for a national kind of candidate if I could get somebody who I thought would be more susceptible than the other person to the kind of resistance that I feel like is important and necessary.
What I think is really interesting about this position is that it combines a couple things that I think are good and have been missing in the way a lot of people who at least think of themselves as leftists have been approaching things. And I do want to give some credit here that this is another case where Jess did a lot of pushing on me with this, but also my good friend Andy and I've had a whole bunch of conversations about this kind of stuff. And Andy is really, really committed to the idea of civic engagement as like one of the ways we make the world better. Like he just like he buys in, right? Like this is and Andy's probably more, I don't want to say centrist Democrat because I don't think that's correct. But I think more like leftist progressive, wants to work inside the system. You know what I mean? Like that's more of his position and believes in progress and this kind of stuff in a very clear way, right? So he and I butt heads a bunch on like, in a very friendly way, to be honest, because he's also very kind. Where I would like to take a little more deconstructionist approach to things, right? But in these conversations, one of the things that happened was I got real mad about Palestine this time around.
Very easy to do.
For various reasons. It's not just, including some of the time I spent in Bosnia working with kids who'd come through a war. This is personal to me in a way that is personal for a lot of people, but like, became harder and harder for me to find the argument of choose the lesser of two evils in this circumstance. And I had decided I was going to vote for Jill Stein. I was going to vote Green Party.
Okay.
I have a long-standing problem with the fucking Green Party.
Yeah.
The Green Party is the dumbest set of motherfuckers I've ever come across in politics, and it really pisses me off. They had, in Syracuse, they actually had a good machine going. They had figured out that they were going to take over some of the stuff in the city government, and they had taken some of the local stuff together, and they were working real hard to build a groundswell at the local level, control the city, and then move in to start getting some regional people put together. Do you know what I mean? Like building an actual fucking party. Mm-hmm. Every year, all the money would go into some asshole running for president instead of putting the money into getting a couple congressmen. Like, if they just took all the money they throw at a presidential race and we're like, we're going to win 2 districts in Pennsylvania. Sure. Like, they'd actually have a fucking coalition. You know what I mean? And like half these states, you could hold the entire machinery hostage if you had a voting block of 5 party members that other people had to deal with, right? This is getting back to one of the things I like about the position you're putting forward and that ended up here with. So I was going to vote for Jill Stein. Had a nice discussion where Jess was pushing me on this, like, are you really going to do that? You know, and because she's like, you know, quite reasonably, not to speak too much for her, but saying like, hey man, the stuff that's on the other side looks pretty scary. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's some pretty scary shit going down there. That's not just like, you know, it's not. I don't think personally, I don't think a Trump presidency would be as harmless this time around as it was the first time around. I think there's a lot more people gathered around in the wings, ready to be like, we got some crazy shit to throw down. You know, I think people can get too conspiratorial about the Project 2025 stuff, but if you actually look at what the Heritage Foundation's talking about doing, they have a lot of power and influence at a tech level. You know what I mean? At the sort of like wonk level of government, right? And it would be a fundamental shift in how things go if you got rid of the expertise level. You can have some fights about. I actually think there's a lot of reduction to be done in the federal bureaucracy. I'm not a big fan of that, but switching it to political appointees is bad. It's like it's real bad. That's sure. That's end of. That's moves real fast to a world of people don't get services and certain people get excluded and faith tests to get into government real quick, right? Sure. So looking at that, because I actually think if you look at the first Trump presidency, again, I don't like him and I don't think he is a good dude and I don't think he has good policies, but less war. Economy was okay. He didn't fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like, sure. You can argue the toss back and forth about what happened with the pandemic until you're blue in the face. You know what I mean? But like, that being said, Donald Trump would quite happily turn Palestine into a lake of glass. Like that, like he has said as much. He like, my not voting for the Democrats, who I do not like and I do not enjoy, is not going to help those Palestinian kids. Sure. At all. I might be able to push Kamala Harris. Do you know what I mean? Like there's an actual voting block. There's people that we can do there. That's a fight I can have.
Okay, so you're on the side of Kamala is going to be more susceptible to the resistance,
or at least I have on more this power. Issue. I think I have more power to fight Kamala than I do Trump. And the surrounding and the descending hierarchies from there, which is the stuff I'd actually.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so what about